Hello guys, my name is Rizky from acreativealt. Back to another topic on creative business and passion. And today I'm going to talk about a topic that many other YouTubers hardly talk about: failures. The purpose of me of creating this series of creative and passion is to give a sneak peek to anyone who are thinking of pursuing their passion as a career. I have many experience throughout my 15 years of career in a creative line. And of course, if I were to list down all my mistakes through the years, I probably can talk about it for 2 hours. So I'm going to share some of my failures in the past and some of the things that I've learned from those failures, and I hope this will be beneficial to you. One of the hardest things about working in the creative line and pursuing your passion is the fact that many of the stuff that we do are very subjective. So something that I think is nice, other people may not think it is nice. Although when you reach a certain levels of expertise, you probably have a certain kind of a standard of works that you have done. However, whether other people will like it or not is another case differently. And because the fact that we tend to put a lot of our passion into the work, when people don't like it or people rejected it, it kind of affects us personally. So I still remember really well one of my project failure was actually I was working on with a large exhibition company. Back then, my job is actually to design exhibition booth, and I had an opportunity to design and pitch for a pretty big project. Took me 3 days, almost never sleep through the night, and when I completed it, I was pretty happy with the result. But then when I went to present it to the client didn't say anything, but she was simply doing this and without saying anything. And of course, I was much younger back then and kind of took it personally. So I was a little bit upset and angry, and I think my ex-boss back then was kind of noticed it. So he took over the presentations from there. But I didn't, of course, bang the table or say anything stupid or something, but I think probably shown on my face. So of course that project was a failure for me. When I look back to that particular project, one of the things that I learned a lot throughout the years is the fact that I should not take anything personally. I should always remember that in a creative line, all the projects that we do is very subjective. Whether people like it or not is not because of you, it's just because of their personal taste. Another thing that I've learned through that experience is communications. If that happens to me, in fact, that actually happens to me many times after that. When I started to do much more presentations, of course, naturally, I get a lot more rejections, but the rejections doesn't actually affect me that much anymore. And in fact, if that exact same experience happens to me now, when the client just didn't say anything, just simply shake his or her head, I would probably say something like this: I understand that you don't like our design, but would you mind giving us a bit of advice on how to improve it? And of course, based on your advice, we can come back, tweak the design further, and present to you again with something that you like. The second failure is that I celebrated too early, and this is, I still remember one of the projects that was a big failure to me. I was working as a lead designer for an events company. Back then, we had an opportunity to pitch for one of the largest phone manufacturing brand back then. Of course, I won't say the name of the company, but I guess you probably can easily guess it. I was a big fan of that particular brand. And when the project lands to me, I was very excited and actually did my best for that. And we won the pitch. I was so proud and happy back then. But then when we delivered the projects, I made a pretty big mistake. What happened was we had a really big backdrop. And on the backdrop itself, there is a name and title of the particular events. I made a typo error. I used a small cap on something that is supposed to be in big caps. So therefore, when the clients saw the backdrop, they were pretty angry. They called my boss, and of course my boss called me, and so on and so forth. So ended up the projects that I was really proud of become a failure of a project, and I still remember I was very distressed with that. And I quickly make some changes on the file, and I quickly sent the printers and asked the printer to help us to print it on a backdrop one more time. And I learned something from it. I learned something that when you actually close a project, nowadays I don't get too happy when I got a nice project, and I will only celebrate the success whenever I've completed the project, the client signed off the projects, paid us a check, and then say thank you. So next thing, of course, I do believe when you're actually a creative person, you always have a pretty bad financial knowledge. At least I was pretty bad at it. It's always be the passion first, the project first, then the money, which of course I learned in the hard way many times. I did many projects whereby I didn't actually get paid. And of course nowadays, when I run my own company, I learn pretty much of writing a proper quotation, writing a contract, and so on and so forth, and make sure our bottom line is covered. I just want to highlight one of my experience because I think this is pretty much a con job done by my client back then. When I was working full-time as a 3D artist, I do a sideline events designing in the past. As you may have known, artists don't really get paid much. So in order for you to be able to save money for the futures, you have to you basically need to do another job to support. And I was doing pretty well in my freelance job back then, and that was actually one of the reasons why I decided to set up a company later on during my career. So I still remember back then I was actually doing freelance events designing. I was doing a design for an events company, and we have agreed on a certain amount of payment. I can't really remember what was the amount, but let's say it was $1,000. What happened was we agreed that I'm going to get paid $1,000 once I completed the project. So then the client told me that, oh, okay, I will actually pay you $300 now. But when they actually pay me, I need to sign a receipt. And what I didn't check back then, the receipt was actually for a full payment. So they passed me the cash, and of course back then that amount of money is actually a big amount of money for me. I was very broke, just out of the school designer back then. So when I received the money, I was pretty happy, and I signed the receipt. So I completed the projects well. The client accepted, approved it, and so on and so forth. I asked for the balance. The client told me that, oh, you have already signed this. You have already signed the receipt. So it means you already gotten paid. Then I told them, but I only received 30%. But you already signed the document, so we can't do anything. So I was like, so of course, then I noticed that I was actually get conned. And of course, I didn't actually pursue further. I don't know what to answer next, and I don't know what to pursue further. Needless to say, that was the last time I worked for that particular company, and that company probably did that to many other designers if they can. I learned a valuable lesson back then, and I was very lucky that that happens very early in my career. So therefore, after that, I always check whatever I signed, whatever I submitted, and so on and so forth. Nowadays, of course, unless the clients have given me many projects, I will always ask for a deposit, and that deposit need to be able to cover my capital. The next failure that I want to talk about is actually on interview. I had one interesting experience regarding on interviews. I actually failed one interview because of a pretty interesting reason. I was interviewed by one large events and exhibition company. So I passed through the first interview, but the second interview was actually done through phones. And the reason why interview was done through phones is the fact that there are some clients who actually work remotely. So time to time, I actually need to do presentations remotely through phone calls. Understanding that the phone call is important, I actually prepared a script. I written down some of the potential questions that may be asked by them, and I prepared an answer through that particular script. During that time, I was still working with another company, and I don't want my ex-boss back then to know that I'm actually applying for another company. So when I received the phone call interview, I move out from my office and stand somewhere beside a toilet. And when I was answering all the questions on the interview, there is a flushing sound from the toilet. The interviewer who interviewed me asked me, are you in the toilet? Did I hear a flushing sound? And I told her, oh yes, I was standing beside a toilet. I think that was the flushing sound from. My apology, that is disturbing. And the next thing that she told me, I was actually pretty shocked. She told me something like, if you think this call is important, you won't be standing beside a toilet. You just failed the interview, and I think you have to apply another time. I was pretty shocked to hear that, and of course I was kind of angry because I was preparing it hard, but I asked her, oh, my apology, because this was actually, I'm still in the office now, and this spot was actually the quietest spot, and I want to be able to listen to you well. That's why I was standing beside a toilet. But regardless, after that, she simply replied, oh, I think you have to find another chance. If I think back, I guess I was pretty lucky that I didn't get a job. It was a a very big company to work with, but judging from that experience, I don't think that's the right company for me to work for. But of course, back then I was pretty disappointed, and it also gave me one lesson to learn. I have to always consider the person that I'm talking to whenever I have an important call. Lastly, one of my failure in my career is that I got fired before. For all of you guys there, if you've gotten fired from the job, needless to say, that is not the ending. And sometimes it's a good thing getting fired. When you've gotten fired, just remember what you actually learned from that particular experience and how to apply it to your next job. For me, I was actually getting fired from a sales job. The reason why I gotten fired was actually because the fact that I couldn't hit my target back then. When I was getting fired from the sales job, I was pretty sad. I was blaming the company a lot, whereby I felt like I didn't get enough trainings. I felt that the industry was not doing well and so on and so forth back then. But if I look back, there are a lot of things that I should have done in that particular company. I didn't regret joining that particular company, and I don't regret getting fired from the company, because from that experience I actually gotten a better job, and whatever I learned from that particular experience I actually implemented a lot on my company now. Those are just a few things that I've learned throughout my career. Of course, there are many more failures that I've done throughout the years. Many of the failures is of course dealing with the softwares, file backups and everything, but I think it deserves a video on its own, and something that probably can be of benefit for other people next time. If you are pursuing your creative career and your passion, I wish you all the best, and thank you so much for watching, and I see you next time. If you want to connect with me, the best is to connect me through LinkedIn, and if you want to find out more about our daily behind the scene, you can follow me on Instagram. Thank you so much for watching, and I see you next time.